man? How's quarantine treating you?
It's good. Um, I mean, I can't say it's really good, but it's just it's cool, bro. I mean, it's not like I've never been locked up before, so
Bro, that's what I was thinking. I was just sitting on my porch and I was like, you know what? This quarantine ain't that bad,
yeah,
huh?
dog.
You got your
Yeah,
own bed, you got the sunshine, you could do whatever you want, basically, all the freedoms. Yeah, man. So it's crazy, bro. Like to think about I want to give you a little intro too, man. It's like I want to tell people that this is like my big bro, one of like my big inspirations, one of the guys that started the journey for me. I always tell people about the first time I saw you, which was before I even started popping, which was at the Machine Gun Funk Funny Bones battle. And
yeah,
that moment when you hit the slow-mo when Fantastic was DJing and yeah, your ability to warp time was kind of the biggest seed that I think that I experienced up until that point, that really kind of got me going. And yeah, man, it's then fast forward maybe a year later or two, I'm at the dojo training with y'all, and I remember maybe the first time that you kind of noticed me was the time where I called out tempo at the battle and way out of my league, super out of my league, but I still had to do it. And yeah, man, ever since then it was kind of like, hey, you asked me at freestyle session to come through to the dojo, and then kind of the rest was history after that. Um, and yeah, so man, thank you for that.
yeah. You
And
had balls, bro.
yeah,
I
thank
had to
you.
respect it. I was like, okay, cool. This motherfucker
Yeah,
just needs some good guidance.
yeah, he's got heart, but man, he's got a long way to go.
You got a lot to learn.
Yeah, for sure, man. And yeah, bro. So it's crazy to think, man. I was starting to think like, oh, what haven't we already talked about? In our first interview, we kind of talked about a lot of things in your past and stuff. One thing that I was kind of reflecting on was this kind of idea that you've become a symbol in a lot of ways for not only LA, but also like Chicanos, also just the whole LA, went from the brims to the lokes to the essence to the what you represent as a person, and um, I'm just curious, like how you feel about that. How do you feel about being perceived as like a symbol of LA?
Um, I mean, it's a big responsibility, like you have to. There's always something to prove to somebody, you know what I mean? And I don't mean that coming from myself. I mean that coming from the outside in. Like,
Mm,
everybody wants you to prove to them that you're worthy, or that you represent the real, or and and I feel like people get lost about, they forget about the reasons the person they're trying to judge is doing what they're doing. You know what I'm saying? And they seem to eliminate the cause, like the true cause behind the person's drive, behind the reason why I love dance, or I love the spirit of representing the street culture with it. You know what I mean? So like, I don't have a bunch of fucking tattoos, and I never represented an actual barrio. So it's like, it's just to be to be on that same level. It's like there's so many, there's so many egos that you got to face in the process, but it's also a responsibility, because there's a lot of people like myself who don't run with a specific clique, because we feel like, okay, being an individual, you gain your respect. You gain your respect in a way, uh, more valuable in a more valuable way, honestly, bro. And but you can gain it in so many different aspects, to be honest. But just speaking for myself, as far as like, representing that, it's a huge responsibility, bro.
Yeah, man. It's what I was thinking about is kind of like I feel like little glimpses of that, not that I represent like the same at the same magnitude, but I feel like whether I'm representing freedom of expression or vulnerability and that type of stuff, you get kind of lost, like the person gets lost behind what they represent. You become a symbol for something, and people forget about the person so much, as in like what the person needs or what the person feels. It's like you get kind of lost in the mix.
Yeah, yeah. People get lost in their idea that they always have to represent, and I mean, yeah, given if you're at an event or whatnot, but it's like if you walk it, you walk it. There's no reason to prove yourself. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
There's no reason to continue the idea that you have to prove this is what you do and this is what you represent, and it's like it's that symbolism shit. You know what I mean? Like, yeah,
yeah,
it's like you're becoming that symbol and that idea, and then once you change face, it's like it confuses everybody. But if you're just consistently, doing your own thing and representing as just a person, as living your life, I mean, there's no people can't hate on that. They can't
yeah,
hate on you being the truth. Wait, true to yourself.
yeah. That's really what it's about, and yeah, man. It's when you travel and stuff, and you traveled across the world, multiple times, uh, and you experience all these different cultures, you connect with people all around the world, and you've left your footprint in so many communities, man. It's crazy to see, the influence you've had, and it's like, and it's not. The thing is it's not just dance, it's also philosophy. It's also um, just your attention to detail, the willingness you have to share.
Yeah,
I think that's also what you're passing on too, and whether it's cooking too, man. I run into
yeah,
people that started, like, shout out to Boom Beast in Montreal. Like this guy, was super inspired by you cooking, and it was like, now look at him, he's taking it to a whole nother level, like
yeah,
got his
dog.
own restaurant. And if I could pronounce the damn name, it's in French, so I can't really. It's like Le Belle Tonqués or something. I apologize, but but that food is incredible, man. It's like a fusion of all these different ethnicities and heritages in one dish. Like he'll have poutine and kimchi in the same dish, and it kind of represents how we also approach styles and within our dance.
Yeah,
For example, like you're a mixture of a lot of things. A lot of inspirations, and it really came down to like what is Frantick, and Frantick is he is a compilation of LA styles, and it's but it's not what made you you is how you deliver it, like not only what you added to the vocabulary, but also what you the essence that you brought with it,
yeah.
and so the thing, like I was always curious about was like, what inspired you to move slow?
Yeah, that's a good question, dog. Because I mean, it was like I think overall it was like control. You know what I mean? And like to really have control, to really gain, the right type of momentum to represent for animation and for the styles that I just like was like there's something dynamic in it where you really can control everything that you fucking do,
Yeah,
and it's like and yeah, it's like like Ilya's saying, it's my natural speed. Like I don't do things fast. You know what I mean? Like I drive fast. That's probably about it. But it's a machine. You know what I'm saying? I'm
that's for damn
totally a
true.
machine. Yeah. but but like when when I do things in my natural state, it's like composed, you know what I'm saying? And I feel that if I can control the composure, if I can control and find that balance in between having to be super hype and super controlled, I feel like slow motion really is a different barrier, but it's that balance of in between. You know what I mean? Because I'm still feeling the music, I'm still feeling the sound, I'm still connected to the music and my expression for it. You know what I mean? So even though like I'm not doing so much in like motion, everything is in the balance. Everything is in a feel. Like it's really fucking crazy
Yeah.
to live in that. Like there's times where I just blank out, bro, and I'm just like my shoulders and my like I see everything find this like form and the expression behind it, the bass, the melody, and just how I see music. You know what I'm saying? So it's yeah, it just trips me out, dude. Like I don't even know what it did, but I feel like it was just possibly the control. You
Yeah,
know?
when did that start? Do you remember like, cause I remember seeing I think it was Tronic that was showing me like the first battle of you two, and also like just seeing like really old footage of you in like, the Adidas, I think it was an Adidas sweatsuit, like I think it was a baby blue one, matter of fact.
That was a Nike suit. I got that from doing a show with Mr. Cartoon. Yeah,
Oh shit, that's
yeah,
crazy, man.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so
Yeah, there
at
was no
that
slow
point,
motion at that time.
yeah.
That's when I started really working on it. I was like, it was something that was. It's like I tell a lot of my students, you know, like when you train on something, you want to get it to a point where it's dope, and then you can express it. You know what I mean? So that was something I've had underneath like my wing. That was a style that didn't come out until 2008, where I was really able to show this is fucking slow motion for me, you know,
Mm,
when I
yeah.
did the Australian showcase, and I was able to
Mm,
do it to a song that represented something that mattered to me back in like the 90s when I was, you know, working out and training and just trying to get my head right. So I felt like, you know, this is the moment, you know, and this is where people are going to see a whole different, it's like a transition of my style, you know?
yeah. Yeah, it was like added to the repertoire that you were already doing.
Yeah.
Because you were do you have a like a story behind the name Frantic? Because like Frantic is almost the antithesis of what your style is now. It's like you're the exact opposite of Frantic
Yeah.
when you move, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it was crazy because like I used to be this very angry kid growing up. You know what I mean? And I had a lot of reasons behind it, but um, you know, once my brother passed, it hit like a peak. You know, and being that you know my brother was murdered, I didn't get to retaliate. I didn't get to, but I wanted to. You know what I'm saying? Like I really
Mm,
wanted to honor him in that way. So when I decided to like really choose dance as my expression, I decided like I don't know, it was my crew, my first crew, the wrecking crew. They were like, "Yo, you got 2 weeks to come up with a name," you know. And what tripped me out was I was on the bus and I seen some dude tagging Schizo, you know, and I was like, okay, like damn, that's fucking tight because the way he spelled it was Skitzo, you know. So it
mm,
was like it was custom to him, and at the time I was still like going through dictionaries and trying to really figure out like what's something that represents who I am. So when I saw that, I went back home and I was like, okay, you know what? There's it's a word. I know it's a word, you know, and it's schizophrenic, obviously. But
yeah.
when I seen you know, the synonyms, the antonyms behind the definition, it had frantic underneath and it said, oh, go to page whatever. So when I looked at that word, I was like, then that shit sounds tight, you know, like. And going over to that word, it had the way it was used in the sentence was very like internal for me. So, and it said, you know, a mad scientist reacts very frantic, and I was
Mm,
like, oh shit, that's kind of crazy. Like that's kind of me on the inside, but people don't understand that. Like I'm very composed and very cautious and very calm, but internally when I'm dancing, like when I feel music, and like that's why break beats are like my shit. I love break beats because
Yeah.
that's just the way my mind thinks when it comes to music. It's like so many different patterns. So never realizing that ticking was my fucking foundation of popping, you know, like my way into popping. So that's what tripped me out over the time, you know. Frantick became part of who I was. And
Yeah.
then yeah, so that's yeah, so they gave me 2 weeks to choose my name, and then I decided yeah, it was going to be Frantic. And I used to spell it with just a K, just to customize it. But then I realized, you know, because I'm OCD, it was like, okay, eight letters is better than seven, you know? So it's really weird.
Of course you would do that, man. Everything's got to be like perfect, bro. Yeah,
Yeah,
Frank.
so because when I used to write it, I was like always the N would always be the biggest letter, and then you know the TIK. So I was like FR, and then I was just like, all right, this is gonna be, you know, it's three and then one letter being bigger. So I decided to even it out. So it was just the way I used to write, you know. But Boogie came after another friend of mine who passed away, and he was like, it was like a revamp of my style as well. Like I was coming back into dancing after stopping for maybe like a year or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, and he was like, "Man, you ain't Frantic no more, bro. You're Boogie Frantic, you know." And ever
Mm,
since then, I was like, you know, like at first I was like, "Man, fuck you, dog. Like you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, you know." But because he was my boy. But then he passed away, and I just was like, you know what, I'm gonna honor him and keep that. So Boogie
that's
Frantic
dope.
became my complete essence, you know.
Yeah. Did Tick were you ticking before you chose the name Frantic?
Yeah,
So you were already ticking. Because like from the oldest footage that I saw you do, there was always a tick element to it.
yeah, yeah.
What really inspired you to start ticking?
Um, Again, the control. You
Yeah.
know, like that was the like I started off with what we would call freestyle, um, and it was like it was basically like a lot of like transitional waves, and and I remember Hayes telling me, he's like, yeah, that's like freestyle. Like you're just kind of, you know, doing what you feel, and it's fluid, you know. So I was like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. Like like how do I define it? You know what I mean? And then I seen Hayes like hit for the first time, and I was like, fuck. Like it looked 3D. You know what I mean? It was like
Yeah.
looking at him and then looking at a shadow at the same time. When he would
Wow.
hit, it was like boom, you know. But it was so sharp, like it was just a quick jerk, but I could see the trail of his body, and that's what tripped me out the most because I was like, I'm a visual, you know, person, so I was like, yo, that should look crazy. It looked like he
Yeah.
came out of himself and went back in, you know. So I was like, okay, like how do I get to that level, you know? So
Yeah.
um, when I started breaking down like my waving, I realized that this was a style. And when I would show Hayes, Hayes was like, he was like, yeah, but you know, like make it look like this,
Uh,
you know. And I was like, and when I seen the effect, I was like, oh shit. So I already had like all this down and just, you know, the way I would move. But when I felt that like, then I realized there was really force behind every single picture. So then I
yeah.
started to really like detail it, and then I realized that like the slow motion, you can make everything look like you're doing something. So instead of just going like boom, 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 and showing a wave, I was like showing people how I can actually like go into something the same way I would do this. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
being fluid, right? So I realized that I can be my natural self, but at the same time use the music in a way where it was like a breakbeat, you know?
Mm,
Like, it's really crazy, dog. So that's how
yeah.
ticking really like hit me because musically I always feel like there's so much more you can put into it. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah,
So like,
man.
and it's also like an expression. Like if I'm rapping, you know, like that there's a specific flow that puts you behind something, you know. So if I'm going like that, and it's like all your syllables and all your the words and the transition of words. It's like you want to be able to understand that expression. So I used to watch music videos and see the way the dudes would move, and they're always like in the camera, and they're just like, you know, they're always using their hands. And so I was like, oh shit, that's kind of like how I feel with Tiki.
Yeah.
So it's really
Yeah.
fucking crazy, yeah.
Yeah, man. It's like you needed a certain like another like tool that you could use to make bars, to make sequences, you know? Because like when you get into your when you get into your slow motion and stuff, like even with waving, something that I even see with Boardman or any of the Pomona wavers too, like there's a certain um it's like you're in the bass for the most part when you're
Yeah,
waving. Boom,
yeah,
boom,
yeah,
and it gives you that space. But then when you start to spit, it's like boom, boom,
yeah, yeah,
ga. Yeah. So it's like you basically figured out a way to chop up the beat and then also be able to find the pocket between the spit and also the bass.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a trip,
That's
bro. It's a
crazy,
trip.
crazy, man. Like that style, you know, you don't even really see many people doing that, you know, still to this day. Like I can you think of anybody that's like really tapping into those like well, for example, like let's trace it back to your influences, right? You got Hayes, you got Jekyll, you got the Pomona Waivers, Mr. Ree, um,
Flat
uh,
top.
yeah, flat top. You got animation.
Yeah.
All these pioneers of LA styles, and then you figured out like you basically took like all these things. You're like the mixed martial arts of LA. You know,
yeah.
you're like let me see what really you had a true visual eye for like what you felt like worked and what you really wanted to compile together. Um, And yeah, I don't know too many other people that are doing it. Can you think of anybody else in the world that's like really kind of taking that on?
Not in that sense, you know, because um, the only other person I would say that really rocks it because he's been around it would be Prince Ali.
Mm,
He's a blend of both. You know, the Bay Area obviously is his first influence, and then LA became a strong influence for his style to be to where it's at. You know what I mean? And then like showing him a lot of shit and being he's like the young homie. You know, he was also, you know, like you, like an unofficial student. You know, so it was like just being able to share ciphers um, and exchanges and just constant knowledge. I feel like that was he's one that is trying to get on that level, and I think he sees it like internally, like he sees it naturally. So
mm,
it's dope to see that because he's not like, yeah, this is where I'm going. And but when I see him dance and I see now like his speed and how he's like in between the music, I'm like, yeah, that's it. You know, like
you
that's
getting it?
like yeah, like I can feel like it's a brotherly influence. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
us. You know, so
yeah.
the same with like Devious and shit. Like it's really it's a whole different, you know, that's a whole different understanding. Like you have to be around it. You know what I'm saying? It's
You do,
crazy.
you do. Yeah, you kind of you have to. Yeah, I mean, like you gotta see all the I don't know. For me, it's like seeing all the origins. You know, like for example,
Yeah,
like the master of strobe, the master of ticking, and then like people like yourself that's compiling them together to see how to blend it. But then you also see each individual piece that's influenced. You know, so and then also just being around the intensity, man. I think is a huge one something that I didn't really start to absorb until more recently, which is like the intensity behind the hit, you know? And for me, like I was more of a flow artist, you know what I'm saying? I
no,
was like,
you know, fuck off. Get the fuck out of here. I call you on your shit, bro.
man, I always got so much shit from everybody, like you, Jekyll. telling me I gotta hit harder, all that sort of stuff. You're from
Well,
LA, you gotta hit hard.
here's the thing, dog. Like, and this is what I've learned to respect about you, and what I've learned about you, watching you. Because, when I look at you, like everybody that is like ever been under our influence in some way, shape, or form, like I have to look at myself at your age, at your where you are in creativity and all that shit. And I've been there too, like there was times where I just wasn't like hitting hard, or I just wanted to be creative and flowy. So a lot of that had to be, you know, had to be expressed, had to be created. So right where I see like your development is yeah, you're gonna get all these lines and you're gonna get all these details, and then you're gonna come to a point where you're just like, but I don't have the respect that I feel I should be having right now. And then when you realize why, you'll be like, fuck, okay, so this is what I need to work on to get that level. But when you realize how hard it is to combine them, that's where the shit gets really like, okay, I'm losing some of this, but I'm gaining some of this. And it's like a fight, to balance everything out. Because for me, the one thing that showed me that back when I was like a teenager, dog, was how do I wave and still hit hard and keep the flow? Boom, like how do I keep that going? So I had to learn how to hit all over again, how to really show that effect. So it was really like a combination of both eventually that came along, um, which is why like I didn't really start bopping until later. Like dime
Mhm.
stops and ticking became my foundation. So I had a really clean stop, had a really clean picture in everything that I did, but it was always that bounce that kept that for me from being fully animated. You know what I mean? So I had to eventually find that level. So I know for a fact that you'll get that, and it's dope that you see it, man.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, man. It's yeah, man. Everybody matures at different rates and stuff, but it's always good to have people that call you out, or you know, there's certain things. It's like it's hard to know and envision what you want, because all you can do is feel what you feel in the moment. It's and you just got to keep at it. And for me, it's kind of I think it's a Buddhist concept, but it's a concept of right effort. So the no matter if it's all about your intention. So as long as your intention is pure and you keep going, eventually, you're gonna. There's nothing wrong with the journey or the place you are now. It's like you can't judge a house that's halfway built.
Yeah,
It's like it's like you just got to keep going, and then somebody goes, "Hey, man, like actually, you see how you nailed this board, or how you screwed these rivets together? Then like maybe you gotta rethink that. It's not going to be a strong foundation. So that's I think really important. But
yeah,
yeah, there was something else I wanted to ask you about too, man, because it's like this idea of practice, right? I've talked to a couple people about it, but like how has your practice changed over the years? Because I talk to a lot of people that are really, people I admire, people that I think are really high level at their skill, and there's a certain kind of pathway where they practice super hard in the beginning and really like obsess over something, and then they
yeah,
kind of let that obsession dissipate, and it kind of um, there's not so much like physical practice. It's more about like uh, envisioning.
yeah. Well, when you get to like, I feel like we all have, like, some start with technique, and then they go towards feeling, and then others start with feeling and then go to technique. So there's a lot of these in like who level out in different various ways. um it's like for me, where I've seen the change is I focused more about technique in my later years, like these years, the past 10 years. It's really about the texture, the technique, and the foundation. In the beginning, like I would say my middle 10 years, because I'm now 28 years. Shit, yeah, 28 years popping, bro. So, like from the 20 to 10, I would say was really about like the creativity, like where can I expand everything that I practiced the 10 years prior? You know what I mean? So now where I'm at now is how do I like uh, detail everything that I've learned in the past 28 years? How do I make it like bam, like really stuck and showing people like all of this history is here, in this small little thing, in these small little things, like the details. You know what I mean? Like when I went to Russia and I danced to Marvin Gaye and just express like the details in like musicality and stops and just like control, like full out animation without having to be that popper that everybody loves to see. You know what I mean? That explosiveness. But it was like, how do you really express all of this in one showcase or in many showcases, right? So let's go back to the first 10 years. The first 10 years was really about mastering as much as I possibly can. So when it came to that freestyle, I was like, okay, now I have the isolation. What else can I add to it? Ticking became the next, fundamental behind it. So I had to learn isolation with stops and control and motion and like pauses and musicality. So as I like progressed into like 15 years, right? It became about like what about my body? Like what more can I do? How can I incorporate my dance even more with this information? So the dancer came in through and that what do you call it? That creativeness came through. And then within going towards the 20s, I was like, yo, how do I like expand and become like this whole being of essence? You know what I'm saying? So, and that to me was like the craziest part, because I feel like the last 8 years has been just strictly about like, okay, like I have a lot of history and a lot of knowledge from so many influences that I feel like now it's time to show people what the foundation really is, like, or just express what the foundation really is, like how good of a feeling it is to just hit hard as fuck without having to lie to people, like without having to use my legs or without having to jerk and make myself feel, but like so internal and so fucking dynamic that it makes somebody go, fuck, how do you get that? Like, how do you get to that level? You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
that's where I was looking at these greats. I was like, like asking animation, how you hit so hard, dog? And he looks at me and he's like, nigga, you just hit. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, fuck, that shit
Damn.
crazy. Like, but to see the power and then to see the differences of like when I would see him and Reed do routines, yo, they would throw each other around, bro. Like, the way me and Devious would do these routines, it's like, it's all muscle, dog. There's no fucking like, there's no chill. There's no like, oh, look at this little trick and this illusion. It was like, bah, boom, like, get over here. And then the dude spins around him and it's like, boom, bah. Like, it's so fucking like powerful, dog. Like, that shit to me is wow, dude. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's point is like you look at everything that you've gained and you have to go back to the beginning and work your way back up through like whatever it speaks to you, you know what I'm saying? So you can't forget where you came from and where you started, but you want to look at the moments you lied to yourself and eliminate all that bullshit and then compress all the stuff that was the truth. And then eventually it starts to come alive to where you are today. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I feel like that's that's where I am right now. Like I'm going back to, for me, it's like I've been sick for since fucking December, dog. So I've been trying to like, I'm been at the bottom of the hill, like trying to get back up. But I feel like if I go back into listening to mid '90s like boom bap hip hop, it's gonna re-influence who I am as a dancer first, and then the texture, the technique is gonna just always be there because it's been there since for 28 fucking years. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
yeah, and I feel like yeah, just that's just where I'm at now. It's always gonna be about the dance, I think.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it sounds like it's kind of like when you don't really know who you are until you've explored and like we have these boxes and compartments in our life, you know, like but we don't really know truly what we are until we start to venture into the unknown and explore these ideas or these styles. Like it's dance is much like a microcosm of life, you know. It's much like you go out, you try all these different styles, you know, you try tutting, you try waving, you try ticking, you try hitting, all this. You might try house and crump, but then it's like, okay, now I know who I am. Like when you tried something that didn't feel right, you know, but you wouldn't know who you were until you tried that thing that you didn't that didn't fit you, right?
Yeah,
So you're kind of always wondering. So I think that's kind of like the beauty of when you mature through a dance. Like it's not just like you see the people that dance for a little while and then they stop, but like when the dance matures with you as a being, you start to see how you integrate your maturity back into your movement. And
yeah,
I feel like that's you know we're at different places in our journey, but I feel you on that 100%. It's like you start to be like, oh, okay, you know, this is what I feel like when the music comes on. This is an authentic movement,
yeah, yeah,
but I
yeah.
had to do inauthentic movement before to really find that out.
Yeah, and like for this is for anybody like who's under 20 years of fucking dancing. Like if you don't find, if you don't explore different music and learn to flip your style and adapt to that sound, it's gonna be a rough road if you're just dancing to the same shit every day. Like to me, it's crazy, bro. Like I don't understand how people can listen to poppy music for fucking forever, and I'm just like, it doesn't. I don't know. It just doesn't. It doesn't. It's not enough. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? And I have to go, just like I do in my style. I have to go back in time and refeel things. Like when I started to really like love funk again, I had to re-fall in love with it because it was like at one point I was just burnt out. You know, I was like, yeah, this is
yeah,
all we jam to. Like this is a backyard shit. You know, like no, I'm not there right now. You know, like I'm on some like drum and bass shit and just like I just want to fucking go crazy internally, but show that I'm in so much control externally when I'm dancing and doing my shit, so that it's like, how do you look like a gangster dancing drum and bass? You know what I mean? Like, right?
yeah.
So
Oh my God. Yeah, man. I still remember like at Respect, you know, there was only like really two dancers or three dancers that I really wanted to watch dance to this shit. And I
yeah,
was like, it was like you and J5, like J5, like, oh my God, that dude's a monster to drum and
yeah,
bass, you know?
yeah.
It literally like,
As much as he swears he hates it, he's like, I'm a house head. I'm like, whatever, dog. Like, you just don't
come
like
on.
working hard, motherfucker.
But the house music make you work hella hard, man. I don't know what
Yeah,
he's talking about, but I feel like yeah, man. I think that's the beautiful thing about like what we do and like what you share and what you teach is like the styles that we do are unlimited, you know, as far as the adaptability to sound, you know, because
yeah,
when it comes down to it, it's not about the genre of music, it's the texture of the sound.
yeah. The
And like,
sound, bro. The sound. The
yeah,
song has to be legit. Like, it just
yeah,
can't be any fucking like. You know, you can't just pick any Led Zeppelin song and be like, yeah, this is it. Like, I want to show this, and it's like some people. I mean, I've done this, dog. I've made mistakes and showcased the songs that just like, why did you do that? You know what I mean? Like, I've done that shit. You know? It's like,
can you think of one off top, like one you remember?
I remember it was like an electro, like an electro house song, like a new age EDM track, and people were just like, You know, like there was no love for it, and it was a song I really enjoyed, and I was like, maybe this is just for me. I remember
No,
that shit, bro. Like we just
it's like
it
you
just
have
went
all the
left
time in the
field.
world.
It went left field for everybody, dog. They were expecting like this, pop locking shit, and just like I was like, all right, well, got to move on from that.
It's like you have all the time in the world to dance with yourself, and then you're like, you know what? This one's for me, guys. I know
Yeah,
you paid me to be here, but
yeah, dude. I just very crickets, dog, like crickets, and I felt it. I was like, fuck it, they don't like it, but that was one thing that I realized. I was like, okay, this is something I have to do. I have to show people how different, you can be, like how expressive you can be, and like, yeah, there were some mistakes, bro. I was like, okay, this just didn't hit, dude, as I was expecting. So,
but
but
I mean that experience educated you though, right? Like it
yeah,
was like a big learning experience where you were like, you figured out what sound like you can bridge the gap between your internal world to the audience.
yeah,
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 because
man.
there's only certain songs and like stuff that we it's really actually a tough choice, when I was coming up and still now, like to me it's like you're like the showcase king, right? So and like this idea of how to paint a picture, how to bridge an emotion from yourself to the audience, or become a canvas for the audience to project their emotions onto you, because you can't directly translate this wave into a to like, oh, this is this one time, like, when somebody passed away. Is no, it becomes like an emotional quality that the audience can go, wow, and they can adapt, they can project their story onto your movement.
Yeah, yeah. That's. I mean, that was always a difficult task because there was, I remember being younger and then just dancing at the park when their band would be playing. You know what I mean? And like, and nobody was dancing, bro. Like nobody was jamming out. I was like, yo, this shit is fucking like. Like I had blinders on, bro. I was like, oh, music. Like, you know what I mean? Like I just fucking, like a bug looking at a light and shit. Like it just sucked me in. So I was like always this just youngster that would just jam at it. You know what I mean? And like, and I remember even in high school when we would have our pep rallies, I would come with like these underground CDs and be like, "Yo, just play the song for me, dog." Like that's all I ask. You know what I mean? Like this one track and shit. And like, and boom, they would hit it on, and we just start fucking it up for one song. Like we get one song out of the whole fucking 30 minutes and shit. So it was like our moment of truth. Um, I remember like when Wu Tang Forever came out, and finally people started recognizing the effect of like real hip hop. You know what I'm saying? Like real fucking that non-commercial shit. So we would just go off, and we would like the DJ would finally play that during our school dances. So like those moments are what help you. You know what I mean? Like those are the things that you really want to have for yourself and maintain. But when you're around a bunch of other dancers, then it becomes so much more because now it's about sharing that enjoyment, sharing that love. Um,
Yeah,
and it becomes less about yourself per se. Even though you're still doing for you, but there's still like an exchange level of understanding and feeling. So it's just
yeah,
learning to you just got to learn how to open it.
yeah, man. It's like a portal, it's something that takes a lot of practice, like there was a lot of times, even to this day, like I walk down the street to the street fair that they have on Friday nights, and like I prepare like songs during the week to go share with the people out there. And for the longest time, like I can't depend on people to stop. Like
Right.
people are walking by, so how do I capture an audience, and how do I share these moments with them, even though they got their own agenda walking by? you know um and a lot of people think like, well, how am I supposed to practice, you know, showcasing when, you know, I'm not asked to judge events or I'm not asked to showcase? Well, it's like we're street dancers at the end of the day. Like the sidewalk is the stage, yo. Like get down. Like you could roll your speaker out in front of your house and perform for your neighbors, you know, like there's no, you can't wait for that stuff to happen. Just like travel, you know, like save all your money, travel. Like you
Yes.
can't depend on other people to pave your way.
Or go to concerts. Like you're always performing for somebody, bro. Like, and this is the
Yeah.
one thing I learned going to concerts, events, even like raves or festivals. Like as soon as you start going off, people start to just watch. There's people that feel awkward watching because they feel like, oh, I'm staring at them. And then
Right.
there's like, but then here's the thing, like, okay, so you have concerts, raves, festivals. You have like little park jams or whatever that they just play music, community events, and it's like if it's a good band or if it's a good DJ, like go off. If it's a backyard boogie at a pool party, go the fuck off. If it's Vegas and whatever, go the fuck off. Like my thing is, there's there's things that you could really do that will help you, and that's like understand every element that's against you. So when I go on stage, like when I used to go to City Dance in San Francisco and perform on this beautiful fucking theater, like there's songs that I would be like, okay, I'm gonna use this song, but I'm gonna battle everybody in the audience. I'm gonna use this song and I'm gonna show like just control, composure, and just details. I'm gonna use this song and just float and just let my style flow. So what I would do was in the audience, I would put all of this energy of like there's a battle aspect, there's the flow aspect, there's somebody that just loves watching you, there's somebody that judges you, there's somebody that just is inspired by you, there's somebody that you have been inspired by. So I look at all my experiences in the audience and let those emotions like come together and just reform like a whole different element. So
Yeah.
um and what I was tripping out on like was when people are like, well, I'm not doing it in front of people. I'm like, well, you've danced in front of people at least once, so if you're in your room and you find this song that makes you feel a specific way, and there's some times where the song makes you do too much and you kick your fucking desk or you kick your bed or you knock shit over, like it makes you do too much. Like those are moments as well. Those are moments that you have to understand. Yo, I need more control. Like how do I become aware of my surroundings and shit, so there's um there's a whole different aspect to when mentally, like when I was locked up, mentally, I was performing in front of an audience, mentally, right? So I'd look at this tower, this watchtower that we had, and I was just envisioning that this motherfucker is respecting me. Why? Because I'm going the fuck off.
Yo.
And that was my way of like being able to keep myself like, all right, I'm doing something right. You know what I'm saying? And like and then you had all the homies that were on the level. I'm like, and all of these motherfuckers are judging me. Like, so there was like a whole different imbalance of entertainment for myself, to be able to express for, and express to. So I feel like a lot of people, they tend to forget that. Like you can mentally really put yourself on a stage. You can mentally put yourself in a cipher. You can mentally put yourself in a battle and just train as long as you don't lose that focus, you know what I mean? But it takes time. You have to practice that shit.
Yeah, yeah, because it's hard. It's hard to envision also like and also embody the emotions of being in front of people if you've never done it before. You know, to like for example, you have exposure to an audience, but then that same feeling that you got, you can now tap into in your practice. You
Yeah, hell
know,
yeah.
yeah. So like for me, it's like. You know, what is that person seeing over there? I used to dance with the headphones in the middle of my college campus, you know, and I could be like, oh. you know, there were some cute girls walking by, so I want to be like real smooth when I do this, even though they can't hear my music. I look hella
Yeah,
crazy, right?
still gonna
But I'm
show
gonna be
that
hella
shit.
smooth,
Yeah,
hit some glides, you know, and then like some gangsters start walking by, and I'm like, bam, like so. It's like you're seeing, you're like, okay, the gangsters are over there, the girls are over there. I'm gonna flow over here, boom, bam. So you start to feel this. Yeah, you can start to tap into your audience like a out of body experience.
yeah. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
dog. Like it's the outer body experience. I feel like is the best training. You know, because overall, I mean, it's for the people, but it's also for yourself. You know, and you have to sometimes be real with yourself and be true. Like, you know, if your shit is whack, your shit is whack. Like, accept it. You know what I mean? Like, I know that there's things where I'm like, damn, this shit is trash. Like, I couldn't even take steps, or you know, my feet just for some reason just weren't working with me. But that's the part of the training. It's a part of understanding that you know you have a weakness at this moment. Let's see if I can try to overcome it. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of people tend to forget that, you know, and they're just like, well, you know, all right. This is the one advice I give everybody. You know, it's like in 20 years from now, and you look at all your showcases, you look at all your battles, like, do you want to be satisfied with who you are, or are you just going to be like, well, you know, it doesn't really matter what I did back then. You know, like you want to look at 20 years from now and you want to see your life story and your movement. You know what I'm saying? Whether it was just from YouTube or whatnot, you know? So when I do showcases, you know, I remember deciding this in 2010. It's like every showcase is like your last. You know, like you never know when your last showcase is ever going to be. You never know, you know, when your last experience with somebody else is going to be. So make the best of it, you know, make it as deep as you can. If
Hmm.
it's like too emotional for people, fuck it, you know, you at least know there's mistakes that you've made and you just learn from it, you know. So it's like you want to look at yourself in 20 years and be able to collect all these videos and just be like, damn, like, and not now. Like I don't need to look at what I did yesterday. I don't need to look at what I did a year ago, but I want to study what I'm doing enough
Yeah.
to where it's like, okay, I see where I'm going. That's all I needed. That's all I needed. I don't need to look at it and just be like, okay, you know, this I need to work on this more and I need to do this more. And it's like that's way too detailed. You know, you want to look at yourself from 10, 15 years ago and be like, fuck, like damn, I was missing so much shit, you know, like, and be able to
Yeah.
see your progression in that way. So,
Yeah, man. It's like your life's the painting, you know, like yeah, you have all these individual get downs and these showcases and ciphers and then, you know, but the bigger picture is the masterpiece, you know. These are
yeah,
just little details. Like I think one thing that people struggle with across the world is anxiety, you know. And I think we're definitely not immune from that. Me and you both feel anxiety, but
yeah, fuck
what
yeah.
what is what is your internal dialogue before you get down, before you showcase?
Um, Sometimes it could be like a simple prayer, you know, simple prayer to myself and just being thankful and just like, you know, asking for the proper strength and the proper expression. Um, there's 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 even things that I do, that I read sometimes before just, you know, being able to go like being able to go to an event or whatnot, and it's like, um, remembering, you know, remembering your intent, remembering, um, your light inside, remembering, um, you know, your presence, your blessings, the love, um, and the gratitude, you know, like being able to constantly understand that, you know, you can still laugh even if you're in this like scared environment. Like you could still look at yourself from an outside perspective and look at like, look how fucking scared I am, you know, and just laugh about it in a way where it's like accepting, you know, that like
Yeah,
damn, I'm in this like fear state, you know, like I could lose this thing, or I can't gain this money. And I remember that, like, there's a lot of different dialogue that happens right before, you know, going on to a show. And what I try to do is always do it for inspiration, you know, whether it's you know, being, I want to inspire myself in 10 years, or I want to inspire somebody that's younger than me or in the audience or older than me to just like keep pushing, keep going, you know. So it's less about me, it's more about obviously like the growth. but but yeah, there's all types, man. Like, and I feel like, you know, just even a internal prayer to yourself sometimes is just good enough, you know.
Yeah,
And just
yeah,
asking to
man.
be thankful and be stay humble. It's like whether you win or lose, and you know, whether you judge, and even if you feel like, damn, I know I didn't lose that shit, but there's a reason behind it, you know. Obviously there wasn't enough, that was something else, and you have to look at it and be like, fuck, okay, well, and I guess, you know, I need to figure it out, and just take that with you, you know, take that little one in the chin and just be like, all right, fuck it, you know. But
Yeah, I think that practice is super. I mean, it's super valuable what you said. You know, the idea of just expressing gratitude is one that brings you to the moment. It brings you into that space of just being like, yo, I'm just grateful to be here. Like, and that already gets you lifted in spirit. Like for me, also the idea of thinking of inspiring somebody, you know, it also gets me like outside of my anxiety, outside of myself, where I'm like, you know, little me scared and shaking, you know, there's a
yeah,
thousand people right there, you know,
yeah,
but the idea of like maybe a past me, like a past version of myself is out there somewhere, like lost, and this performance might be able to inspire them in some way, you know. So like one like little tactic that I use is like whether I'm showcasing or something, I'll try and find like a kid in the audience, you know, and I'll just like look at them in the eye and be like, just stand there for a second and acknowledge them, you know.
yeah,
I got the idea from Atmosphere. Like, I was at, I think it was called Smokeout, the concert, right? And it was like this huge concert, living legends, the Atmosphere, Erica Badu, all these people. Uh, and Atmosphere came out, you know, on stage, and like the one of his favorite tracks, like everybody's favorite track, maybe it was Sunshine or something, and he comes out and he's just like bumping, and he looked deep into the audience and he would find one person and he would be like, and then he would turn and he would look at one person and be like,
yeah,
and
yeah,
and I was like, whoa, and I, like, you know, I'm in the middle of like thousands of people, and I'm like, wow, this guy is literally like taking a moment to acknowledge an individual.
yeah, yeah,
And in his mind, you could see the gratitude that he was experiencing. Like he was just so humble in that moment because he's
yeah,
like, man, look how far I've come. I never thought I would be here, you know? And he's just taking a chance to thank like the individual fan. And I was like, man, that's, I feel like such a good mental, not just a tool, but it's just a practice that is so rewarding to yourself, you know?
yeah. It's true. Like acknowledgement. Like this dude's asking right here. Like, when I dance in public, I get nervous. You know, any advice on how to handle those nerves? He just explained it right there. Like, that shit is golden information, because you got to take it all in. You know, if somebody's watching you, it's it's not even necessarily because you're getting judged. It's just that you're fucking entertaining somebody. You know, you're really putting yourself out there, and people are gonna watch you. What else is, you know, what other thing you got but to accept that? But the best thing is how you accept it, how you acknowledge it.